Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, and today I'll be talking about the book An Exorcist Tells His Story. Actually, this was the first book I read this year because I remember on January 1st, I was looking for a new book to read, and I needed something that wouldn't require too much discipline when reading it to get me into the habit of reading again. Because to be honest, I didn't have the time lately to read regularly, mainly because I was really busy. So I looked through all the recommendations I received over time, especially the recommendations from other Catholic YouTubers, and I saw An Exorcist Tells His Story on my list, which was recommended by Brian Mercy, which he recommended in the category Interesting Book. One thing I can tell you already is that the book didn't disappoint in that regard, as it was definitely interesting and definitely doesn't require too much discipline to be read. You know those books or movies that are so scary that even though you're tired or have something else to do, you really need to finish them because you're just too scared? Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking here about. So An Exorcist Tells His Story is a book from 1990 written by Father Gabriele Amorth, a Roman Catholic priest who served as the official exorcist of the Diocese of Rome for many years. In the book, Father Amorth shares his personal experiences as an exorcist, including the various ways in which he has encountered and dealt with demonic possession. He also provides a behind-the-scenes look at the rituals and procedures involved in exorcism, and offers insights into the nature of evil and the role of faith in combating it. In this video, I will summarize the book, and I'll first tell you what Father Amorth writes about the devil in general, and then I'll move on to exorcism specifically, and of course, as always, I will give you my opinion on the book at the end of the video. First, it's important to say that the devil is not just an abstract concept of evil. Father Amorth writes that the devil is a real and active force in the world. He asserts that it's impossible to understand the salvific action of Christ if we ignore the destructive action of Satan. By taking away the existence of the devil, we take away redemption. He who doesn't believe in demons doesn't believe in the gospel. Now, when it comes to the characteristics of the devil, the author explains that Jesus described the devil as the prince of this world, and in 1 John 5:19 it says the whole world is under his control, so under the control of the devil. Father Amorth clarifies that in this case the whole world means everything that is not God or not of God. However, the Bible never tells us to fear the devil, but it tells us to resist him with the certainty that he will flee from us. In James 4:7. St. Teresa of Avila, a Spanish mystic and writer and also doctor of the church, had a similar perspective, and in her autobiography she wrote, "If this Lord is powerful, as I see that he is, and I know that he is, and if the devils are his slaves, and there is no doubt about this because it's a matter of faith, what evil can they do me since I'm a servant of this Lord and King? Why shouldn't I have the fortitude to engage in combat with all of hell? Without doubt, I fear those who have such great fear of the devil more than I do the devil himself, for he can't do anything to me. Whereas these others, especially if they're confessors, cause severe disturbance." What I found particularly interesting is Father Amorth's advice on how to best fight the devil. He writes that one of the best means against evil influences is also one of the hardest precepts of the gospel, to forgive your enemies. He also repeated a couple times that Satan is more enraged when we take souls away from him through confession than when we take bodies away from him through exorcism. So confession is more powerful than exorcism. The author writes that the goal of the devil is actually not to make us suffer. Satan's true goal is not to make you suffer or to harm you. He does not seek our pain, but something more. He wants our defeated soul to say, "Enough. I'm defeated. I'm a piece of clay in the hands of evil. God cannot help me. God forgets his children if he allows such suffering. God does not love me. Evil is greater than he is." This is the true victory of evil. He also explains what areas of life the devil typically attacks, and these are our health, business, affections, enjoyment of life, and the desire for death. And he categorizes the activities of the devil in 5 groups, and those are ordinary temptations, possessions, oppression, obsession, and infestation. I'm not going to explain each of them because A, I don't think that it's going to be particularly helpful for any one of you, and B, it would make this video too long for my taste. Finally, I'd like to address a topic the author also writes about in his book, and that is the idea that some people confuse God's predestination with God's providence and believe that their future is already set in stone and that their actions are therefore useless. In response to this idea, Father Amorth states that God wants that everyone be saved, no one is predestined to go to hell, Jesus died for everyone, and everyone is given sufficient grace for salvation. This suggests that God's predestination does not negate human free will and the importance of making choices that align with God's will. Instead, God offers everyone the opportunity to be saved through the gift of grace, and that it is up to individuals to respond to this offer and seek salvation. Now let's get to the topic of exorcisms. Father Amorth writes repeatedly that it's important to differentiate between someone being possessed and someone having a mental illness. He writes that the gospel clearly distinguishes between healing people from disease and expelling demons. It's important not to confuse the two, as possession and mental illness can sometimes co-occur, but they both need different forms of treatment. The author writes that an exorcist is more likely to be able to distinguish between possession and mental illness because he believes in both, while a psychiatrist will only look for natural explanations. It's important for both an exorcist and a psychiatrist to cooperate in such a case. Then Father Amorth writes about how exorcisms are structured, and he also explains a bit how they work. Exorcisms have two goals: diagnosis and deliverance. Contrary to common belief, an exorcism is not just about expelling the demon or the demons, but also to properly diagnose someone with possession. I didn't know that you have to start the exorcism before you can have the certainty that someone is possessed. The signs of satanic possession include speaking in unknown languages, exhibiting superhuman strength, and knowing the hidden. The thing is, these signs only occur during exorcism and they're not present beforehand. That's why it's necessary to start the exorcism before diagnosing someone with diabolical possession. Father Amorth also explains that there is no such thing as white magic, only black magic, which is magic that comes from the devil. So it's not a good idea to seek the help of mysterious leaders to solve demonic problems, as even if they promise to only use white magic, the only thing they can use is black magic, so demonic power. A really interesting thing I learned from the book is that exorcists exorcise more women than men. And Father Amorth explains that this is due to the fact that women are more likely to seek help. For example, the author made the experience that he has to tell men more often to change their lives and that they refuse more often, even if it's apparent that their current way of living is wrong. Father Amorth also says that demons suffer more during exorcisms than they do in hell, which I also found to be an interesting fact. Finally, I'd like to touch upon the topic of charisms, and especially how to recognize a true charism, so whether a charismatic ability actually comes from God. A charism, for example, could be the ability to know the future or to know the thoughts of other people. There are 4 guidelines for determining the presence of a true charism. The individual or the community lives the gospel in a profound way. The individual or the community performs the service freely, even without accepting donations. The practices used must be approved means of obtaining grace through the Catholic Church, such as prayers rather than magic formulas. And the fruits of the charism must be good, as in Matthew 12:33 it says, "The tree is known by its fruits." Now let's get to my opinion on the book. When I started reading it, I didn't have any expectations other than this would be interesting. But I still would give it only a 7 out of 10, and I'll explain why. In the book, the author talked a lot about examples of people who went through an exorcism or experienced some other form of demonic activity. And to be honest, I personally don't like books that contain that many examples because I prefer if the book explains the topic in an abstract way and just lists the facts. But if you like books that contain many stories of people and many examples, I can definitely recommend this book. That's been it for today. I hope you liked this video. See you next week. God bless and bye!